Welcome everyone to the Omniverse of Nick and the first part to the spinoff of What If Daryl Died Instead of Merle. But before we get into that, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe button so that you can help me make this channel bigger, better, and have much better stories for the future, especially with all the new perks, memberships, and additions added to this new chapter in the Omniverse of Nick. Once you get that all out of the way, we can dive in to today's episode. So, the spinoff, for those of not familiar, if I didn't spoil that enough whenever I did, the spinoff takes place in place of The Ones Who Live with Merle and Beta. It is titled Dixon's Whispers, Merle versus Beta, covering the end of the story, which we wrapped up last time. We remembered Daryl Dixon, his sacrifice, his memory, and everything that he was worth in the story leading up to Merle's true redemption and what he meant, and talked about Merle and how much he has done and did in the course of the story. And we ended with Merle going on the hunt for Beta, who, unbeknownst to any of them, had been forcibly taken by Jadis/Anne to the CRM because they both had nothing and literally Jadis threatened his life. So that ends the recap, and we're getting into part 1 of 3 with the spinoff. We get into the CRM's introduction, and Jadis integrating herself into the CRM along with Beta. But even after getting the CRM outfit, seeing a little what the CRM has to offer and everything, Beta's still thinking about that plan to use the CRM as his own horde or to just get away. And this solidifies it based off what he sees and the fact that anyone who comes here can't leave. Jadis/Anne tries to talk to him and says that this is a monumental opportunity and that Beta should be happy here. She could have just killed him right at that junkyard when she had the chance for killing her people. She could have literally given herself nothing. But this didn't just work out for her. This can work out for Beta too. He can become a higher up soldier. They can change the course of the world and actually get something working here, and mentions the 500-year plan with the CRM. But Beta is far from interested and says that he only went along with her because she threatened his life, and that don't expect him to get comfortable here because he is far from willing to be a part of this charade. And that night, while he's sleeping, he dreams. He dreams of his past, who he was in that building. And he dreams of Alpha helping him discover who he is, helping Alpha to take down Hera and the likes of the Whisperers, being Alpha integrated as the leader. And from that point on, who they became after, Alpha and Beta, the solidifying leaders of the Whisperer army, and what they did, built, and conquered, and how all of it melted away the second that Alpha was slain by those people at that community, the hilltop, and all of what led to this very moment. And Beta makes up his mind. While the CRM might not be able to be taken by him like those other two communities, he still plans to get out of here, build his own horde, and get his revenge. And with that, he gets his mask, which he still has, and tries twice to get away. But, like Rick, even though Beta is taller, stronger, and kind of more honestly intelligent at many levels than Rick, he just can't get away from the CRM. Soon enough, he hears and meets General Major Beale. Or Major General Beale, however you want to frickin' say that. And learns a little more about the CRM, but doesn't care. He continues his escapes. And once he gets to attempt number 3, this is the point where it would be Rick escaping. And it's Beta now. Whenever Rick threw his bag with his stuff onto the boat. But what does Beta throw? Well, we obviously know. He throws his mask onto the boat, just as a solidifying factor to try and get away. But Okafor and several soldiers halt his efforts. And there's no message in a bottle since Beta has no one to get back to. So Beta just throw his mask on the boat. Okafor sees Beta a lot differently than how he saw Rick. He sees Beta as, number 1, a very big threat, and number 2, a solidifying, very impressive, possibly general in place of Beale, because he doesn't see him just as a soldier. He sees him as beyond a leader, but he does have to confiscate his knives and give Beta the general kill stick after attempt number 3. And then Beta meets the likes of Thorn and learns a little about Okafor, the bombs, and more about the CRM. Okafor tries to get Beta to understand the CRM and what he's doing, the escape attempts, and how he looks at Beta. Only a little bit of how Okafor feels, but these pleas and details fall on deaf ears. Then we get to attempt number 4, whenever everyone, including Rick and Cannon, were taken out in the middle of the woods with the red lights, and they were all on leashes. But with Beta, I'll get to that in a minute. Beta is given a long machete, and I'm talking this would be a huge machete because Beta's a huge man. So naturally, this would be a great weapon for him. Once Beta's leash is pulled on by the CRM soldier, he's not going to cut off his arm. Beta is not truly that. He's desperate, but not family desperate. So when he's tugged on, this only makes Beta angry. So, with how big, strong, and overpowered Beta is, especially in this story, he yanks the leash back and tackles the soldier to the ground. But several others surround him, and unfortunately, Beta is tased and brought in. So while Beta did put up an immense fight, the CRM is just too much on the advantage for Beta to get away, even here. Even though Beta's done a lot better than Rick. Soon enough, we see Beta on the walls, triumphing Rick's and Michonne's kill streak on the walls, against the rules, mind you, but hey, this only makes the people there fear and, praise Beta, but he doesn't care. Soon enough, Esteban is brought in, but Beta cares even less for him than Rick did, so honestly, it doesn't matter. And then Major General Beale talks to him more, and this officially grounds their meeting. And now, Beta with the casual CRM outfit is only a tiny bit more interested in what all this means. Like, why does it matter? What does this place mean to the world, and why should he care for it? And Major General Beale says, because he and the world need the CRM. And mentions more on the 500-year plan and how much the CRM truly means and how they've been to change the world, and how much Beta, even he, General Beale, sees Beta even earlier than when he said it to Rick as the next replacement of the army, as the main leader. He doesn't see him just as a soldier. He sees him beyond a leader. But Beta just smirks at this, half faking the whole leader thing, because he doesn't care still. All he cares about is now this is giving him incentive to want to get away more, because he knows that he's feared and praised, but he doesn't care. Esteban is talked to by Beta next to get away, And Esteban doesn't really want to cooperate here, not only because of his life now or his place, but because he is scared of Beta. But Beta says that he does not wish to kill him or anyone here. Not yet, he says to himself. All he cares about is getting away, and he will spare Esteban's life when this is all over. While this is going on, Thorn talks to Beta more about the management, the rules, the planning, and what's her goal and what she thinks of Beta. And she sees a true leader in him more than just a soldier too, and can't understand why Beta would throw all of that away to get away and just have his heart blanketed by all this darkness and to be around corpses that could just usurp the world. But Beta says that he doesn't care about anything here or what it's worth. If there's anything that's worth anything here, it's to help him get away. And he shoos Pearl away. And soon enough, we get an epic shot of Beta wearing CRM clothing, which would be awesome. Once we get to that attempt number 5 and that stupid girl behind the walkers who Rick had to save, Beta is far angrier when this happens, because now he had gotten so much closer to getting out of this stupid community and to get his plan finally fulfilled, and this girl ruined it, and he's ready to just kill her. But then his mind flashes to Lydia and how much Alpha cared for her and the two of them, and he thinks about the Whisperers again. And this stops Beta from killing her, and it leads to him actually saving her. Once they're back at the base, Thorn is very confused by this, because now she doesn't see a crazed man with his heart blanketed by darkness and wanting to surround himself with the dead. He just saved a girl's life. And Beta says that it's because of an old relic of his past that haunted him in that moment, and it was nothing to do with the girl's life. He just couldn't bring himself away from that thought, and to not get too ahead of herself thinking that he's with them. That night, Beta attacks and interrogates Okafor, but it's not about knowing who he is or his family or anything like that. It's the fact that he is being kept here and completely halted, and that he doesn't want to be a soldier or a leader. He wishes to go his own path, to follow his own leads of the walkers and usurp the world for himself. And when Okafor kicks him, Beta's not going to take that like Rick. He pulls through and slams Okafor into the wall, which they're at. But Okafor and his smart military thinking, this only hinders him for a second. When Beta goes to assault him again, he rolls out of the way and aims a gun at Beta at gunpoint so that he thinks that Beta can't move. But Beta doesn't attack. He just smirks smugly at this, saying that, "Go on, shoot me. I have nothing to lose. And I thought you saw me as a leader." But Okafor says he's not going to, because he does see Beta as a leader and beyond. And Beta throwing all of that away to just be surrounded by the dead, that's exactly what got him in this mess in the first place. And that it honestly is just annoying to him in many levels, because why should Beta want to surround himself with the dead when he can be with a community that can make the world how it was before even better? Everyone are his people, everyone alive. Basically half of what he told Rick. But Beta says that he is not a part of everyone anymore. This is his choice and the world that he chose. And he doesn't understand how he is pertained to all this information that doesn't concern him. And he doesn't expect Okafor to understand, someone who's not lost near of what he did. But then Okafor mentions the bombings of Atlanta and Los Angeles, killing his wife and almost doing the same to Philadelphia. But Beta is not deterred like Rick because he doesn't understand how this information matters to him. True, now he knows a lot more, but he doesn't care enough to really divulge the way he's thinking. He's only tiny got the CRM into his mind. But even Rick at this point was not into CRM stature until he was on the copter with Okafor. And he says that the reason that he blanketed himself from the world was to hide who he was and keep his true purpose. And now he doesn't care. Okafor says that he should care because the world can be better if Beta helps. Beta, honestly, he expected that the likes of Jadis/Anne or someone in the world would have killed him already for how much of a threat he is. But people have chosen to keep him alive, seeing how much of help he could be. Why would Beta want to squander that talent? Even if he's trying to hide his identity and all this, he could be worth so much more. Beta, he just wants to ignore this, but he sits for a second thinking about all this, taking it in, and finally listens and accepts all this and says that he will agree to be a part of this CRM and this crazy charade on one condition. He gets to keep his 2 blades. He gets to not be targeted or assaulted by soldiers anymore or watched on the daily double. The kill streak is taken off of his record permanently, and he gets to be a high officer. He will not demand leadership, but a high officer, and gets to command whoever he wants on missions and to actually work on this. Okafor says that this is a tall order, but honestly, considering how much Okafor saw for Rick, he would see double, triple, quadruple that for Beta, and everyone would too. And considering that Beta's actually negotiating here, it actually means a lot. He's not asking for leadership, he's asking to be a high-up soldier. Beta says those are his terms, and Okafor should be lucky that the likes of him are accepting anything that this community has at all. But if Okafor don't agree, he'll just go back to square fricking one. But Okafor, he agrees with this. And with this, they have a deal. Beta is integrated into the CRM personally. With his giant machete still at his side, the casual CRM weapon, and both of his blades even more upgraded into the CRM level. So now, Beta is a full-on CRM soldier, one of the highest up besides Okafor and Thorn, right almost next to Major General Beale. And then we show them in the helicopter, with Beta piloting it almost better than Rick. And Okafor saying that he's really proud of where Beta came. And honestly, this will go even more long ways to possibly that 500-year plan being lessened. But then he is shot by a mysterious assailant, and their copter is blown up, with the soldiers being attacked by a missile. Then, when Beta is thrown to the ground, he gets straight back up and jumps back up to a sword being lashed in his direction, which he combats back with his giant machete. He then power throws the assailant straight to the ground because, unlike Rick, he is not going to take any kind of attack. We know Beta, so he isn't going to take this lightly. And then, once he's thrown the assailant to the ground, he looks at the assailant and, with shock in his eyes, recognizes him. Merle Dixon stares up at the soldier, very terrified, and honestly, kind of recognizing who this might be, at how strong this guy is in this armor. But then, the guy in the armor responds, Beta, saying, well, to think that I forgot about you. That was a mistake. and throws the helmet to the ground, and Merle should have known. The very person that he came to find, he ran into like this. How was Merle's journey with the likes of, say, Nat and those people different than Michonne's? Or was it almost exactly the same? And what will lead into the second part of this spin-off? And how did you guys like this first add-on to an awesome 3-parter spin-off to our story? See you guys next time. You guys didn't think this was the end of the video, did you? Well, the Omniverse of Nick has a new feature. A sneak peek at what's next to arrive.
I carry within me the pride of a... Bullshit.